It is only fitting that the person to end our academic program on this year of legacy be John Lester. John Lester has worked with 3D virtual worlds and educational communities since the 1990s, creating online patient support groups for people dealing with neurological disorders, developing immersive simulation courses for students at Harvard, and building bespoke virtual world and VR educational applications for universities and businesses. Using platforms like Unity and Open Simulator to create multi-user educational experiences for both VR-based and desktop applications. He also worked at Linden Lab, known as Pathfinder Linden, where he founded Linden Lab's Boston office and led the development of the education and healthcare markets in Second Life, while evangelizing the innovative use of virtual worlds in scientific research, artistic expression, and immersive learning. He currently leads Virtual Rehab's Global Technology Strategic Direction as their CTO, working to reduce recidivism and reincarceration rates through VR-based immersive learning and rehabilitation programs. He also serves on the board of directors of Virtual Ability Incorporated, a nonprofit organization helping people with disabilities by building online communities of support using multi-user 3D online virtual world technologies. John originally studied at MIT and worked in the neurology service at Massachusetts General Hospital, where he researched neurodegenerative diseases while developing online learning and collaborative tools for physicians and patients to improve quality of life and facilitate knowledge sharing. John's neuroscience background, combined with his community development and 3D virtual world experience, gives him a unique perspective on how 3D virtual world and VR technology can be best matched to the human brain's natural way of learning and perceiving the world around it. Everyone, please help me welcome our special guest in Keynote, John Lester, better known to many as Pathfinder. John, the floor is yours.
Okay. Can everyone hear me okay? Check 1, check 2. If people can hear me, this is good. Yeah, you know, the voice has to, the voice, weird things happen with voice. Stuff happens. It's okay. We're all here. We're all here. Again, I won't be hearing you guys in voice, but if you have any questions, you can type them in chat, or you know, I'll try to keep an eye on the in-world chat while I'm going through my slides. Yes, today I'm a penguin because I just thought it would be fun, and you know, part of showing up in a multi-user virtual world is actually having something kind of interesting to see in world. I love this little penguin avatar. I can throw fish at you guys. Let's see. Can you catch those? Oh no, they're stopping. Okay. I can litter the stage with fish. I can throw these fish at you. I can fly. Yes, Amberjack. I can also call my cousins. I can call a bunch of cousins here too. They're very enthusiastic. They really like me, so they will even clap and follow me around. I love this. I mean, this is part of the beauty of these types of environments that we're in, right? Is that we can actually have engagement with each other and engagement with the spaces in here and the things in the spaces, and these little critters are following me around. You should have been here earlier. I rezzed like 60 of them on the stage, and the stage was just full of penguins clapping and coming after me. And yeah, they're just, I'll send them all away right now. See, I think they all fly up in the air. I say, penguins, go home, and then goodbye. There they go. There we go. The fish will go away eventually too. I'll stop jazzing around here in a minute. And you know, yeah, this is the title of my talk is let me move my camera over here because I like to see the crowd here too. Oh, thank you everybody for coming out here. title of my talk is Beyond Escapism: Virtual Worlds, Vulnerable Populations, and Social Good. So let's just dive in here, and I want to tell some stories too. You don't have to look at my bio because we already saw a lot of stuff typed to you about all the background information. But these slides are available online, and at the end of the slide deck, I'll have a URL where you can get all these slides. That's why I put my bio on there, so you just have all the info there as well as the title of my talk. But since we're talking about legacy, I was looking through old images, and I was like, when did I start really doing some fun stuff with online virtual worlds and people communicating using the internet and the web? And I found this picture. This is a picture of a sign that somebody it's still up there in if you go to Massachusetts General Hospital and you go to one of the physician meeting areas, this thing is still up on the wall. And it was something that when I was working there, it was put up in 1993, and it was me basically saying, please access our World Wide Web server. I had started one of the first websites at Mass General, and we put up information about, you can see it was about up-to-date info on neurology and maps and mini CVs and information about staff and research labs and so forth, and hyperlinks to other medical institutions and databases of interest. And what's funny to me about this is how wrong I got it. I was wrong in my mind. I look back at this and I laugh because this is 24 years ago. And I was all excited about being able to connect to information. The internet would be this way of connecting people to information. And really what has most amazed me over the years is how it's really about connecting people to people, right? It's about people being able to share what they've created with other people. Nowhere on this sign does it say anything about you can talk to other people. And ultimately, what I ended up doing at Mass General is I started working with online patient support communities, and I got way more interested in that. Like, oh my goodness, I can use the web to help bring people together, and these communities form, and they do amazing things that I never even imagined. So for me, I love this image because it's just, again, I was very wrong back in 1993, but I learned pretty quick. I learned that it was all about using technology to connect people to each other, and it was really, in my mind, it was really about the technology being able to improve people's quality of life and to increase social good. Working at Mass General, my focus was on working with patients and caregivers and people with disabilities and supportive communities, and it was just amazing what happened and how I saw these dramatic improvements in quality of life, which is just kind of sad right now in terms of the industry focus on all of these switching screens here. All these technologies, we talk about virtual worlds, and the industry is really focused on escapism. This is a image from someone who's drawing a picture of how they envisioned the interior of that guy's van in the story Ready Player One. And it's about escapism, and it's about immersing yourself in entertainment, and it's unfortunate because sometimes the industry around VR and virtual worlds, they kind of pitch it as it's a transcendent experience, and it really isn't transcendence. What they're talking about is really withdrawal, and it's fine for periods of time. It's fine to escape once in a while. Everyone likes to do it, but that's not the real magic thing that these platforms provide. It's not the magic thing. It's way beyond escapism. And what I like to think about in terms of beyond escapism in virtual worlds are these three magical circles. You could call them, they're kind of like verticals, they're kind of like pillars, I don't know. But I think of them as circles, and I like them to think of them as circles because there are intersections between them. And the three amazing circles in virtual worlds, areas of of magic are art, in my mind, art, education, and what I like to call augmentation. And I'll explain what I mean by these three. You know, by art, it's pretty obvious. There's amazing stuff that happens in virtual environments when artists get a hold of the tools, because the artists are always the people who take tools for creating anything and go, I could use this tool in a totally different way. You know, oh, here's a brush that someone invented. Instead of painting maybe I'll flick the brush, and there you have, you have Pollock inventing his style of art. You know, it's something totally new. So it's amazing to see what happens in the circle of art in virtual worlds, because that's where people use the tools in ways that the creators never expected. Education is the other area that I'm just very, it's just fascinating to me, because again, you know, when you're provided with these amazing new tools, you can the educators are the ones who figure out how to use them to create immersive learning experiences. So there's amazing innovation that happens there. And in terms of augmentation, by augmentation, that's really where, you know, you talk about how technologies like virtual worlds can be used to help people with disabilities. And I don't like to think of it in terms of, you know, disabled people. Rather, I think about it as technology that's somehow augmenting people, right? Letting people do something they can't do in the physical world. You know, maybe like walk on a beach because they are in a wheelchair, or maybe, you know, have the ability to connect with lots of people around the world and share experiences, but they're actually homebound in the physical world, or you know, a wide range of ways of augmenting people. So I like to think of augmentation as its own magic circle. You know, virtual worlds being used to help people do things that they can't do on their own. And the real magic, I think, happens at these intersections where you have maybe something that's related to education, but also augmenting people, and also artistic expression. So think about the most amazing things you've seen in virtual worlds, and most likely it's at some kind of intersection between these three, in my opinion. Right? Some amazing learning experience that is also maybe helping people with different disabilities to express themselves, and artistic expression all wrapped up in it. So it's kind of hard for me to talk about it, because I don't think there are adequate words yet to describe all of this stuff, but I did the best I could with these three circles. So in terms of, you know, examples of things that are happening beyond escapism in this space, and the first one I love to talk about is virtual ability, where I think you can see the sign over to my where's the sign over here? Oh, there it is over there. I'm throwing fish at it. You see me throwing fish. I don't have a pointer. I have fish to point at the sign over here. Virtual ability is you know, involved in this amazing conference here, and there's also an area. I can't remember which region it's in. Maybe someone could say it in local chat. But there's a little dance area for virtual ability, and there's a little display over there. But virtual ability is this amazing nonprofit organization that I'm privileged to have been and still am involved with to this day. And it's a nonprofit organization that helps people with a wide range of disabilities, providing supportive environments for them and creative environments for them in virtual worlds. Their main base of operations is here in Second Life. But they do a lot more than just, you know, create places for people to get together and do stuff. They do amazing community events, and they also do amazing projects with research organizations and government organizations, and they do consulting as well. So they do amazing things. And again, this is at that intersection, in my opinion, between art, education, and augmentation. Virtual ability is right at that triumvirate intersection, you know, where you just see amazing, beautiful builds, amazing artistic expression in the space, amazing opportunities to help people with disabilities through augmentation of their creative minds, and also the education as well. And one project involved around education and research that they had recently did that I love to talk about, because I'm on the board of directors for them, and I do what I can to help them think of new ways of helping more people. But this is something that they did working with the working with people suffering from traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress disorder and strokes. And so they basically created this, and when you get a chance, watch the video. You'll be able to click on it when you look at the slides online after my talk. I don't want to play any video now or anything, but watch the video. They created something. They built it actually in Open Simulator too. So it's not just things happening in Second Life. In this example, it made sense to build something in Open Simulator because it needed to be a very closed and controlled environment. But they built this whole quest-based system to basically have clinicians be able to walk people through learning and immersive learning exercises and help them, guide them through a very defined experience and a learning experience. And it's just amazing. Watch the video. The video itself too. They did just an amazing job putting the video together. But this is this involves education. This involves helping people who are dealing with strokes and traumatic brain injury and PTSD to be able to function better in the physical world. So here are people who they need to be augmented in terms of being able to practice how to re-enter daily life and do things in daily life. And this environment, this support space really helped them with that. Just amazing. I wanted to mention too, Virtual Rehab, which is a small startup company that I'm involved with, and there the goal is immersive learning to help inmates basically re-enter society and succeed in the world. And the goal is to reduce recidivism, meaning reincarceration, being committing more crimes or just not being able to function in the physical world and be able to integrate back into society successfully, to be able to succeed at life, right? And this was a case where I do a lot of work with virtual worlds on the desktop on 2D screens, and this is a case where I'm always thinking about the best tool for the goals, and in this case, immersive learning, using VR was the right tool for the right job because we're working on developing simulations like mechanic simulations, like teaching people how to check their oil in a car, and these are systems that are being deployed, within prison systems, within a prison. So you have a system that's it's like going to a classroom. Instead, you put on an HMD, you put on a head-mounted display, and you have this immersive experience. And in this case, it's a really fantastic right tool for the right job because there's nothing like basically using two handheld devices to, in a sort of room-based VR simulation, manipulate things under the hood of a car and pull out the. You can see on the right there, pulling out the dipstick and checking the oil. And the other wonderful thing was it allowed us to create these experiential learning environments where there's basically these like quest-based systems where you have to find the oil to replace the oil that is needed in the car, and you have to go to the store, and you have to experience daily life in terms of going to the store and interacting with a cashier and finding things in the way stores are laid out. These are all things that for prisoners they don't have any experience like that for years when they're incarcerated, and it's a real challenge for them when they're re-entering society to deal with that. So I thought, this is a really good example of the right tool for the right job. VR is a really good tool to create these types of simulations, both kind of vocational training simulations and social simulations. I think amazing possibilities there. Well beyond escapism. Right. This is about a life simulation, basically, so that when you're in the physical world, when you're released from prison, you know what to expect. And really, at the end of the day, I think about this a lot. When people talk about brand new shiny of anything, here's a new shiny piece of technology. I'm at my heart a technologist, but someone who's completely people focused, and understanding how people interact with each other and how they interact with the world and share knowledge and support. And at the end of the day, whatever you're talking about, whatever technology you're talking about, it is not amazing if you have to explain to me why it is amazing. And it's amazing to me how much technology is people explaining why this thing is amazing, right? It's really if you have to explain why your thing is incredible, then your thing is not incredible. Right? You have to. It should be obvious just by seeing it. Kind of like in Zen Buddhism, the wordless flower sermon. You just see the flower. You see the lotus flower, and you just understand it. And that's why I always talk a lot about stories and examples, because that's how you can understand if something is really amazing. And yeah, like Gentle Heron, you just said, if you have to explain the joke, it's not funny. And a lot of tech, it's amazing how much tech is explaining the joke. Gentle, I think I'm going to use that quote in the future, because that's a really good, way of summing it up. So on that note, I'm going to talk a little bit about some stories that tell more than just a story. And Gentle will be familiar with these, because I talked about these at a presentation I gave with Virtual Ability before. But I think they're wonderful stories, and they're not specific about Second Life or anything or anything in general, other than just experiences that I have had, stories around experiences that I have had that illustrate the power of beyond escapism for virtual worlds. And virtual worlds aren't just 3D things involving putting goggles on your head. There are things like Second Life. There are 3D worlds, immersive online virtual worlds are also, chat rooms. They're also, other technologies that have come and gone in the past, things like active worlds, things like the Palace, which I'm going to mention, and so forth and so on. But I think these are 4 beautiful little stories, because I like to tell stories. And again, they help illustrate that magic intersection between augmentation, art, and education. Right. So the first one I want to talk about is the club. I started when I was at Mass General. I was I created and managed some real-time chat rooms, because I was really interested in virtual worlds for patients and caregivers, and I started creating chat rooms to help people who were dealing with different neurological conditions come together and share experiences, and I knew I wasn't smart enough to understand exactly what they needed, but I thought if I could get them together and give them the tools to talk to each other, that they would come up with amazing ideas, and maybe I could help them grow on their own once they got together and were able to share support and information. And of course, like anything else, when you start doing this, stuff starts happening and you don't know about it, and it's just happening. It's life. It's wonderful. It's like things just start growing and happening. And at one point, somebody told me, they said, "Hey, John, have you heard about in your multiple sclerosis chat room, there's a club Avanex?" And I'm like, "Really? Club Avanex? That sounds that's weird. What do they do? Are they coming together in this club, in this chat room, and just partying? That sounds really weird." And then it suddenly hit me. I realized Avanex is a drug that is something that people with MS. It's a drug that requires self-injection. You can see on the screen there. Someone's injecting themselves in their thigh with Avanex, and it's not a great experience when you're giving yourself this injection. And some people, especially people who are kind of leery of needles, it's terrifying, especially if you're somebody who's maybe also having to do this by themselves. Imagine being by yourself, having to do this with no one to kind of be there for you. So what happened completely on their own, the people who were using this multiple sclerosis chat room that I'd set up, decided what we're going to do is we're going to adjust our schedules. And these were people around the world. And they adjusted their schedules so that at the same time every week, because this is like a once-a-week thing that they were doing, at the same time every week, they would all log into the chat room, and they would all inject at the same time. They would go 3, 2, 1, let's do it. And they would be there in real time to support each other right before the injection and right after the injection. So if someone had a tough time, people would be in the chat room talking them through it all. And this blew me away. This was this was using web-based simple chat rooms. This was 1994. And again, they coordinated this all on their own. And they called themselves Club Avanex. And they actually had set up like a web page at one point on someone set up on their own website a little page talking about, hey, join us in Club Avanex. And they made it a fun experience, a supportive experience. They made it a social event, all on their own. They augmented their ability to reach out across time zones and actually be able to support themselves during this experience. So I just think the club is a wonderful, amazing story. And of course, that kind of thing happens now all the time in environments like Second Life in terms of people coordinating amazing things, across the world in different time zones. Some people are up late, some people are up early. But I just thought that this is a wonderful example of that self-emergent, intersection between, in this case, really between education and, people, improving their quality of life, augmenting themselves. The club. I'm going to summarize the lessons, I think, from these stories at the end too. So I'm not just going to be rambling too much, hopefully. The guy from NYC. So this was I had another online community where it was the focus was on Parkinson's disease. And people dealing with Parkinson's disease would share information and support, and Parkinson's is one of those situations where you're diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, and immediately, understandably, you want to know all about it, and you want to know more than just what your physician is giving you in terms of information. You want to know other people who are dealing with this condition over years and years, and how what do you do? How do you deal with that, just emotionally over time? And in one of these environments, there was a guy. His username was Mike NYC, and Mike NYC would never talk at all about who he really was. He would just be like, "I'm Mike. I'm from NYC." That's all you need to know. The only other thing he shared with everyone was the fact that he was young onset Parkinson's diagnosis. So he was very young, diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, which is terrifying to people who are young, because it's most often thought of as Parkinson's is thought of something as an older person's condition, potentially not a younger person's condition. And so Mike was very very private about his who he was and what he was doing in real life, and he said he came onto the chat room and he basically said, I've just been diagnosed, I'm freaking out, I don't know anyone else who's dealing with young onset Parkinson's disease, let alone Parkinson's disease period, and help me out here. And the community really came together and talked to him for whenever he was online, and over time, Mike actually then started giving back to the community, started being there for other people, because people would come into the chat room and it was this similar thing. It's like, "Hi, I'm new to this environment. I was just diagnosed. Holy cow, I am freaking out. Help me. What should I do? Is this normal? Is this side effect of the drug normal? Is it normal for me to feel this way?" And he started really giving back to people. And about a year or two went by. And at one point, Mike said, "I'm ready to tell you guys who I really am. I just want to share it with you, just so you know. I just feel like I want to tell you who I am." And he said, "I'm Michael J. Fox." And of course, everyone in the room said, "Oh yeah, sure." And I'm Robert Redford, and I'm good joke, Mike. You're funny. That's hilarious. And he said, "No, I'm really Michael J. Fox, and I just wanted to thank you guys, and I just want to tell you that I'm inspired by all these early experiences, and I'm going to dedicate my life to building some kind of a foundation that I want to build to help do research in Parkinson's disease, and I want to just dedicate my life to giving back to finding a cure for this." And no one believed him, of course. "Yeah, okay, fine." And he said, "No, really." He said, "If anyone's in New York City, come to." He was filming. I can't remember the name of his show. He's like, "I'm filming my show. Come to, tell me your names here in private one-to-one chat. Tell me your real life name, or don't. Just tell me the name you want to be known as, and I'll put you on the guest list, and I'll get you some seats up in the front when we're doing the filming, in New York for the show next week." And sure enough, there were like a couple people who happened to be living in New York who were in this community and said, okay, we're going to show up just for fun. Yeah, okay. And it was him. They actually got to meet him. And so anyway, what was special about this in terms of stories is the power of these environments that augment you by augment everyone by giving you the ability to be not anonymous but pseudo anonymous, right? To be able to share as much or as little as you want to, and it's different for everybody. But the power of that is I think a wonderful example told by this story. And his friendships, he developed a lot of these people. The friendships lasted for many years after that. It's really, really amazing. This story I want to mention about the faces. This was I started using a platform called The Palace. I don't know if anyone here remembers. This is, way back in the early 2000s, late 90s now. The game called The Palace, it was a game, but quotation marks game. It was a multi-user chat environment where it was kind of like paper cutouts. It was kind of not really 3D. It was really just 2D, but people would log on. And the big thing was people loved to use different faces, like your avatar. Most people would have it be these smiley faces, and they would change. The face would change. You can see there's a face picker down there. You would basically change your face to match your mood. And people were really into that. And I found one group of people got really, really into that. And people were saying, yeah, there's this group it's really taken off in the Palace, John. You should check it out. Because again, people would use these technologies and spaces that I set up. They would just do what they were going to do, and I would often find out about it after they were doing it, which is wonderful. It was just to see these things evolve. And someone said, yeah, there's this Mobius group. They're like, I'm like, Mobius? What do you mean, Mobius? And it turned out that the group that had really taken off in using this platform was a group of people dealing with Mobius syndrome, which is it's a neurological disorder that affects the cranial nerves, particularly the cranial nerves involved in moving your face. So people with Mobius syndrome in the physical world, they can't smile. They can't really frown. They can't really, there's varying levels of it, of course, but they can't, it's a weakness and paralysis of facial muscles, and they can't express emotions on their faces in the physical world. And when they had discovered this platform that gave you a lot of power over, being able to have a virtual face, they just flocked to it and started adding all of their own custom emoticons and just taking off. And they were like, hey, then I started getting pinged by them and like, hey, John, can you expand the ability for us to do stuff with facial emoticons? And I'm like, oh, heck yeah, I'll tweak the technology to help you guys add more to them. And, so they had started out in using the chat rooms, and then they had really taken off in the Palace, and with the ability for the Palace to give them avatars with very malleable faces, it was just like they just took flight. So an amazing story of in this case, the augmentation is being able to smile or frown or kind of smirk, and it was amazing to see augmentation like this with the technology, improving people's quality of life amazingly so. The last story I want to mention is I call it the safe and the scary. This is a picture of Second Life. This is Brigadoon Island. This was an island that I set up before I was working at Linden Lab. I was using Second Life since 2002. I was in beta, but in 2004 I had started a space in Second Life called Brigadoon Island. It was actually an outreach that I was trying to do in terms of exploring new technologies, and I created it as a space for people dealing with Asperger's syndrome to come and practice their socialization skills. I thought it might be really interesting as a place for them to practice socializing in a 3D space, because it's very difficult for people. It's a spectrum disorder, autism spectrum disorder, but there's a spectrum to it, and it's very difficult for many people dealing with Asperger's syndrome to go into public places and interact with people in public places. And so I thought this would be kind of interesting. And so I set up this space, and it just took off for them. And what was amazing to me was that they created always two very distinct types of places. They created places that were very safe for them, and they also deliberately created scary places in terms of challenging places for them. You know, I remember one man created a restaurant that was kind of a model of a restaurant in the physical world that, like, I think he had been to it a couple times, but he just couldn't deal with it. It was just kind of terrifying experience for him. But he from memory recreated it in the environment here, and was using it as a place to practice. Simulation is a place for him to practice being comfortable in it and meeting with other people in this space. And what was most special about it was not just that it was, it was a wonderful example of people dealing with Asperger's syndrome and autism to, practice and engage in improving their quality of life by learning to gain confidence. And there was a very positive correlation. They were people, who were reporting back and saying, I have gained confidence in the physical world due to my practicing in these simulations that I've worked on in Brigadoon Island. And again, these were being built by them. I didn't build any of them. I basically said, here are the tools. You can build your own spaces and build spaces for other people in the community. But what was most special about this too was the fact that one of the people involved was the Sojourner, who got very inspired to go on and help build more communities that evolved into things like virtual ability, right? So it wasn't just a one-off thing. It was something that took on and has a life of its own today. So really, what are the lessons from these stories around augmentation and education and the artistic expression as well? I think one is that I think there's real magic that happens in any kind of multi-user and malleable environment, and it can be a space like Second Life where you can co-create whatever you want to create, and it's full of people. But it can also be in just text-based chat rooms. It can be in, weird little things like the Palace, which is like playing with electronic paper dolls on a flat picture, and that's because point number 2 is that, people will squeeze amazing emotional bandwidth out of whatever they can get their hands on. You just have to get people together and get them using the tools that give them some malleability, some control over shaping, it's about shaping a place, and that could be, creating customized content in the space or whatever. But they squeeze amazing emotional bandwidth out of this. And so you have conversations that happen that are not just dry sharing of textual information. It's an amazing sharing of emotional support, and that is a really very powerful thing. When you're talking about going beyond escapism, it's like these are environments where people laugh and cry and have the full emotional range of experiences shared between them that also happen in the physical world. And I think the other lesson that's really amazing is that people will use these tools to create not just comforting things, but challenging things. I see this all the time, like I was describing with Brigadoon. But people have opportunities not just to create fun little places that are kind of comforting, but you see people creating things that are challenging. Challenging to create, challenging to experience. People like to use these environments to improve their quality of life by helping them face their fears. What's the saying? Inside the cave that is most scary to you is where the most important treasure is, right? So people, these are opportunities to face people to face their fears, to face things that are challenging to them. And another lesson that was very powerful, I think, is again, this idea of encouraging masks and discouraging visibility. When people have the ability to control how much they share about their own, their real life identity or whatever, it's just I see it continually as a very, very positive thing. And masks aren't just about hiding. Masks are about highlighting certain aspects of your personality, right? About bringing to the surface a facet of yourself that you want to really share with other people. You know, a mask isn't just about what it covers up, but it's about what it highlights, what it brings to the surface. And you know, when in these virtual environments, these virtual worlds, people talk about you know, wearing avatars and like, oh, it's totally different from me in the physical world. And you know, it's a very powerful force for good in my experience. What you do want to discourage, though, is invisibility. You want to discourage, you know, people being completely, and maybe anonymity is not their best term, but I guess what I'm trying to say is, you know, people not being, no persistence to their identity. I mean, you could be totally anonymous, but as long as you're the same anonymous person, like you're anonymous person, you know, numbered 513, and as long as there's a consistency to you, then you can avoid, you know, the more negative aspects of you know, people who just want to cause trouble and keep hiding themselves behind multiple identities. So whatever it can be done to discourage complete invisibility and no persistence to identity, I think that's a good thing to do. But probably the most important thing in my experience when you're looking at virtual worlds and helping them grow to beyond escapism, beyond just entertainment, but into, you know, really helping people, especially helping people improve their quality of life and helping people learn, is to build tools and cultivate not just the communities within these spaces, but cultivate their ability and dreams to build new communities. Because like what happened with Sojourner and you know, the people involved in virtual ability, and you know, there's this when things happen right, then the people in these communities will go on to build more communities. And I think it's the responsibility of the caretakers of the environments that these people are working in to not just help these communities that exist now and grow now to be successful, but to encourage them with, you know, tools and support to be able to build new communities beyond what exists today, because the communities of tomorrow are really where, you know, it's the future where everyone will live. So that's, I think, a very important thing to do. So that's my talk. Holy cow! Look at that. I'm on time. 7:50 here, my time. Again, thinking about beyond escapism, think about these three areas. You know, this intersection between art, education, and, you know, augmentation. You know, think about examples that you can find, you know, in Second Life and in other virtual worlds, and I think of the lessons learned then from these amazing examples of the magic that happens at these intersections.